Hi there, Jack Socia here with you once again with a little instructional display to help you with your podcasting. If you checked out the previous one, you'll notice that I mentioned that 83% of podcasters do it with audio. 83%. A lot of advantages to audio. You don't have to get dressed up, have lighting, makeup, a nice looking studio. You can record sitting in a broom closet if you want to, and no one will know because no one can see you. But now, there's a couple of ways of doing it, and we talk much more about this in my audiobook called I Want to Podcast, where we strategize the difference between recording, say, for example, direct to your computer or via recorder. But let's talk a bit about recorders, because it's a fascinating thing. They're all over the place. They are just going crazy, and at least one company, Zoom, has got more of them. I swear their own mother couldn't tell them apart. There are so many different ones out there. I'm going to give you some suggestions for the ones that I use, and a couple that you may want to look out for as being just possible for your use as well. My overwhelming favorite, the one I use just to get things done, is called the Zoom P4. There's a picture of it right here. You'll notice it does not have any built-in microphones. It does not have a built-in speaker. There's a place for headphones, and of course there are 4 places that you can plug in microphones. It uses something called the XLR connection, which is very common among microphone manufacturers. You buy a microphone, it has a blank end on it, you plug in the XLR cable, and you plug in the other end to your Zoom, up to 4 of them with separate volume controls. It's pretty easy to use, and by the way, there's even a little testing thing that tests your SD card to make sure it isn't some cheapie that doesn't work. That's my favorite. You can manually adjust the volume. You can also put what they call a limiter on it so it doesn't go too high. And basically, it's a great unit. The other bonus to it is that if you plug it into your computer using the USB cord, it works as a mixer. And so you can have it both ways. I think it's a pretty good deal. If you check online, they're well under $200 right now. And they're also battery operated, or they can be plugged in. That's my first choice. My second choice was something that has been bouncing around the internet for a while, and people have been talking about it. It's a recorder from Philips, and you'll see it pictured here, called a Voice Tracer. This was fairly expensive when it first came out because not only did it have 3 microphones built in, a single one for monaural recording, a pair for stereo recording, but there also was an extra snap-on pack that was included with it that allowed you then to use so-called XLR microphones, including the ones that are powered. So like the Zoom, you can use a real studio mic that requires phantom power, or you can use a regular dynamic mic that does not. Every once in a while, certain discount sites such as Woot, which is owned by Amazon, put this thing out for $39.95. People scramble, and of course by the time they get there it's already gone, and then a little later more of them come out for $39.95. The question is, why are they so cheap if they're so good? Well, there's nothing wrong with the audio quality of these things. What is wrong with them is that they're unusually complicated to understand. When you're getting ready to record somebody, the last thing you want to do is have to go through a flight checklist to make sure every switch is switched the right way, you've got the menu set up the proper way, and everything is working. With the Philips, this could be a little bit of work. There's some little design flaws in it. For example, there's a place to plug in a standard microphone with a little mini plug. That's just fine. If you have a dynamic microphone, doesn't require any power, you can buy an XLR cable with a little mini plug on the end, plug it into the Philips, and you're good to go. But if you want to plug in the headphones, usually the headphone plugs are fairly big around, even though the little mini plug itself is small. You can't get them both in at the same time. They won't fit. Design things like that are the things that drive people crazy. So I would say, if you have a chance to get one for $39.95, and particularly if you think you're only going to be using it with the built-in microphones, which sound pretty good, maybe it's a good enough deal. But if you're going to try to use it more, shall we say, in a complicated way using the add-on pack, just be sure you read the instructions because, trust me, it will be frustrating. Now, with all apologies to Zoom, I have no problem with their P4. I think it's a great device. But as you can see from this screenshot, there's a million different Zoom recorders out there. I don't know why they keep cranking them out in so many different configurations. One that has been discontinued, and I frankly bought one used, was called the H2. It's quite nice. Again, it has built-in microphones you can plug in, however, a dynamic microphone into it if you wish. The way it's set up is that if you are just going to record something, let's just say a podcast, you use the microphone that's in the front, and it sounds pretty good. If you're going to record some music or some event going on, you use the two microphones that are in the back, and you get a very nice stereo recording. If you're trying to do some kind of 360-degree environmental recording, you can turn them all on. It's pretty neat. It runs off an SD card. It does have regular AA batteries, and I kind of like it. Now, I still am not completely convinced that I want to use this for everything that I do. In fact, I've got much better microphones, and I've got that P4, which really do everything I really want to do. But I just wanted to give it a try, and I did get one used for not much money. And basically, it's the kind of thing you could drop into your bag or your coat pocket and take with you just in case something came up that you wanted to record. Now, speaking of things that are used and on the internet, at some point you will probably see something that looks like this. It is a digital recorder from a company that's well respected called American Audio. Looks a little retro looking. Matter of fact, it looks like it came from the 1940s. Well, it didn't, but it did come 20 years ago. It was a very, very early digital recorder. I actually owned one of these at a time when I was given an assignment to record a 2,000 pipe organ. This thing cost new back then $99.95 with two little microphones that plugged into it. And believe it or not, because it had manual controls and the quality of the mics really weren't that bad, I was able to make up a little rig extending the microphone several feet apart, aimed up at the big organ, and using that little recorder, I was able to make a good enough wave recording of that 2,000 pipe organ that it was played on a nationally syndicated radio show where they were very, very picky about the quality of their recordings. I also recorded a Christmas album from that same organ that was made into a CD using that little $99 guy. And the American Audio Pocket Recorder also has the rather bizarre feature that you're also able to plug an electric guitar into one of the channels. So you can be on one end with a microphone and the guitar can be on the other. Pretty strange. Now, they're getting a little long in the tooth, but as is the case with older radios and things like that, sometimes as you adjust the little volume knobs, it makes a scratchy noise. That won't hurt the recording as long as you're not doing it during the recording. But if you're setting up the volume, it's a little disconcerting. They're floating around for $50 or less. Frankly, I would skip them at this point. Unless, of course, you want to do something that involves an electric guitar. But look at this next thing here. This is an unassuming little Sony ICD LX30, it's called. Would you believe that this thing, which also is pushing 15, 20 years old, is something I used during some contract work I was doing to record 1-hour radio shows that were also podcast. I was able to plug two microphones into it using a little Y adapter, and this thing, which at the time I was able to buy online for $60, over a period of 6 years, generated, well, let's just say it would have been enough to cover a large part of buying a brand new car. How come? Because the sound is excellent. And also they do have two built-in mics, so if you're recording a band or something, at some event, is quite acceptable. Now, I wouldn't record my entire show on it, unless, of course, I was in a real pinch and I was in a really quiet room. But it is an outstanding, crazy little recorder. It operates similar to a cassette, very simple operation, almost impossible to mess it up, and almost impossible to erase something accidentally. I would carry one of these in my pocket also if you don't get the zoom, if you can find one. And the crazy thing also is they're on eBay. I just saw one going for $18, another one for $49, another one they were asking $395 for, which is totally insane. But see if you can spot one. Be sure to get the black one, not the white one. The white one is all in Japanese. Yeah, everything on the screen, the instructions, the whole thing. Get the black one. Make sure it's in English. If you can grab one of these for $50, I would strongly suggest it. You never can tell when you're going to bump into somebody and you want to do a quality interview. And this thing, honest to goodness, works. Like I say, I used it for 6 years and generated pretty good income from that one little $60 recorder. Last but not least, you see these $39.95 little pocket recorders for recording meetings and things like that. I have tried to plug good microphones into them to see if they will record a good recording, and they don't. They're just not good enough. However, If you're a person like me who suddenly has memories of things or sudden ideas, if you carry one of these in your pocket, you can flick it on, quickly record what the idea was, to turn it back off again. They are excellent for keeping track of things like that. And in a pinch, if you suddenly ran across somebody and had to do a quick soundbite, yes, you could use it. But just don't think of using it for any kind of long form. I would mention the names, but frankly, they're sold all over the place with about every different name on it you can think of. They all look about the same, and they all work about the same. For more information on the audiobook, please go to my website, acpress.com. You can hear a sample, you can see the table of contents, you can find out more about me. And again, I hope to give you some more information next time.